Welcome back, everyone. Mac and I are ready to go with episode 11 of Instant Replay. Today is a special edition of the show. It is a complete college sports edition. We're going to be talking about football and basketball. Football-wise, we'll be recapping some of the bowl games, most notably the semifinals that took place, and we're going to be previewing the national championship that will go on next Monday. And in terms of basketball, we're going to talk a little about who's performed really well, who's kind of raised their draft stock, and who have been some really big disappointments this year so far. So, Mac, ready to get into it? Let's do it. All right, so the way we're going to do this is we have some points laid out, just kind of some takeaways that we had from the semifinal college football games. So let's start with the one that really no one saw coming, the absolute demolition of the Michigan State Spartans by the Alabama Crimson Tide. I am an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. You can see my jersey, number 10, A.J. McCarron, supporting the boys. So I was pretty pleased after that game. There was some.
I could tell you were pretty pleased.
There was not a lot wrong with that game. I mean, other than the 2012 national championship, that is probably the best game that a team has played under Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa. So, I mean, just some quick points to take away. I mean, that Alabama defense is top-notch, really. I don't think there's anyone who can really challenge them in terms of that defensive skill. If you look at those 11 players that are going to head out there most of the time, they're all going to start on an NFL team someday. I don't think that there's really any weakness that they have, maybe over the top. You can hit him with the deep ball, but really with that front seven, they didn't even give Connor Cook a chance
you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
You don't have enough time if they're up in your face.
And it's a case of, a lot of people like to talk about the front seven, but really it's a front 11 or 12 by the number of guys they just roll through there. So it's not like you can wear them down fatigue-wise.
Yeah, what's good is their strength covers their weakness.
Yeah.
Their weakness can't be exposed because of their strength.
Yeah, for sure.
Which makes it almost invulnerable defense.
Yeah, it was impressive to watch. I mean, I knew that Michigan State was going to need to play pretty much a perfect game to win. They didn't, and they paid for it because of it. I mean, it was a shutout, right? I mean, there's really not much more that defense can do. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle Deshaun Watson and the Tigers, but I mean, right now they're playing lights out.
Yeah.
Second point, I think that we saw the emergence of Calvin Ridley as Alabama's next big wide receiver. And before we go any further, I know that is a big weight to put on someone's shoulders. I mean, if you look at the past Alabama receivers, you have Julio Jones, who is a top NFL receiver. And
Quick fact from Week 17.
Yeah.
Julio Jones, more receiving yards than the entire St. Louis Rams.
Really?
Really.
I mean, he's good. He is a physical specimen. The guy is just an absolute animal, and it came from his time with the Tide. And then the other big Alabama receiver, Amari Cooper, had a great rookie year, kind of helping Derek Carr figure out that Oakland offense.
Yeah, Oakland's a team on the ride.
So, I mean, Ridley's got some big shoes to fill, but I think you saw the potential he has as a freshman, right? I mean, this whole season has been, okay, let's pound Derrick Henry down the other team's throat. Well, Michigan State didn't let them do that. I mean, Derrick Henry, I think, had 60, 70 yards maybe. So they needed Jay Coker to beat Michigan State, and he and Ridley lit it up. I think Ridley had 8 receptions, about 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he provided that deep threat that you saw last year Cooper do for Blake Sims. So I think that we kind of saw that potential that Ridley has as kind of the next big Alabama receiver. Definitely some big shoes to fill. But I mean, a really, really impressive performance nonetheless. And then the last note we have, and this is about the other team, the Michigan State Spartans. They really dug their own grave, unfortunately. To be honest, going into the game, I didn't think that this team was as good as their record indicated. I mean, I know you are a Michigan Wolverines fan.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they had no business winning that football game.
No, and if they hadn't done what they did to Michigan, or Michigan did to themselves, Michigan State wouldn't have even been in that game. But you got like I was saying before, some credit had to be given to Michigan State because
for sure.
You have to play those games, and they found a way to win, and this was the same sort of challenge they had against Ohio State.
For sure.
And they pulled that one out, so it's not like Michigan State was a pushover per se. They might not have been as talented, but they had those intangibles to win, but they were clobbered.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think if you look at their schedule, they did have some nice wins. They had a big win over Oregon early in the season when Oregon was ranked in the top 10.
Yep.
Like you said, they played Ohio State, beat a team who everyone thought very highly of, and then beat Iowa to get into the playoff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they had some scares against, obviously, Michigan. They lost to Nebraska. Tight game against Purdue. Maybe games that they should have done a little bit better but I mean, they came out of it with a 1-loss record. So definitely worthy of being there. I just don't think that their record really was indicative of that team. You know what I mean? And I think Alabama exploited the holes that team had. But, I mean, who knows? Alabama played really, really well. They might have destroyed anybody on the other side of that field during the Cotton Bowl. So, anyways, those are our 3 takeaways from the Cotton Bowl. Let's move on to the Orange Bowl now. Clemson taking down Oklahoma. Let's jump right into it. My first comment is Deshaun Watson is good, but I think we saw that he isn't as immortal as people think he is. I mean, great player, don't get me wrong. I think really highly of Deshaun Watson. I think Clemson is going to get a couple more years out of him, a couple really good years. But I think we saw he struggled to throw the ball in the game, and especially if you look at the end of the first half, his team had a chance to take the lead, 17-16 game, and he threw a pretty boneheaded interception in the end zone. So I think in terms of that sense, I think it's going to require a little more mental maturity, which he has shown throughout the year. He's definitely progressed as a player. I mean, he was a Heisman Trophy candidate. But kind of eliminating those errors is going to be key if they want to win a national championship. He's got to play a perfect game against that Alabama defense. But then when he figured out he couldn't throw the ball, well, he did it with his legs, right? I mean, he ran all over that Oklahoma Sooners defense to provide really a spark for his team and lead them to victory. So, I mean, he is a very, very good quarterback, don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player and will have a great career someday in the NFL, but who knows? Maybe right now, if they want to win, he's got to play a perfect game against that Alabama defense. Can't have those boneheaded interceptions like he had against the Sooners. Thoughts?
Like you said, it should have been a lot closer game than you said. A couple of late touchdowns there. It was definitely a lot closer game than the score indicated.
Yep.
So,
that's fair.
Clemson's got some work to do if they want to overcome Alabama. Alabama definitely looked the stronger of the two.
For sure, definitely.
In the semifinals.
Definitely fair. Next point against the Tigers. They're willing to throw the kitchen sink at you. I mean, they're not going to hold back. We've seen a bunch of trick plays from them. I mean, it's not that often that in a game of that magnitude, the score was still really tight early on, and Clemson decides to throw a fake punt to a 300-pound defensive end, which I think just goes to show you that they're really willing to do whatever it takes to win. I mean, they're willing to take risks. I think they're going to have to win the national championship. They're going to have to pull out all the stops.
Unpredictability might be. I mean, it could kill him. It could save him.
Yeah, it's and especially I think if you look at that play, it comes after a game in which the Clemson punter decided to go rogue and call his own fake play. So I think it just shows you the confidence that they have in their special teams. Maybe that's where they get Alabama, a trick play or two. But certainly some interesting things to watch for in the national championship. I'm sure at some point you're going to see something funky from the Tigers. And then moving on to the Oklahoma Sooners, one point about them. To be honest, I think they're just getting started. I mean, if you look at who they're bringing back next year, they're bringing back Baker Mayfield, really great quarterback. In my opinion, I think he's actually the best quarterback who is playing in the college football playoff. I think he's got the highest upside, and that's no disrespect to Cook or Coker or Watson, but I just think Baker Mayfield's got it all. And then if you look at the running backs, they're bringing back both Perine and Mixon. So I think that in terms of their backfield, they're going to be set. They're just going to have another year of development. They know the system. I think they're going to be Big 12 division favorites at the beginning of next year. Have to strengthen the receiving core and have to replace some defensive players, but definitely will go into next year with playoff expectations, I think. So I think it's a tough loss for the Sooners, but I think they're just getting started, to be honest. So with that being said, let's move on to the national championship preview. So I've laid out a couple of keys to victory for both teams. Mac, tell me if you agree or disagree, but let's start with the Crimson Tide. The Alabama Crimson Tide key to victory will be Jake Coker. The Clemson Tigers' defensive scheme is going to be based around stopping Derrick Henry.
No doubt.
Big Heisman Trophy winner. Michigan State was able to do it, but they allowed Jake Coker to beat them. Jake Coker played arguably the best game of his career. Well, actually, not arguably. He played the best game of his career.
Yeah, he's going to have to repeat that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Clemson Tigers defense has the ability to stop Henry. They shut down the Oklahoma run game.
Be tough to do both, though. Be tough to shut down the run and the pass. So if it's almost given one for the other. So that gives Jake Coker the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he's got to take advantage of all the skill players he has around him. I mean, we talked about Calvin Ridley, Ardarius Stewart, O.J. Howard, Richard Mullaney. So I think he's got a lot of options around him to be successful if Henry can't get the job done. So he's definitely the X factor on my end for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Focus on the other side of the field. The Clemson Tigers, the X factor is going to be the defensive line and whether or not they can shut down Derrick Henry and then also Jake Coker, shut down that pass game. One of the things that Michigan State wasn't able to do is get a pass rush. Jake Coker felt very comfortable, and the times that he was able to scramble out, he did find guys. So it's going to be up to the defensive line to keep him contained and make sure he's feeling a little uncomfortable. I think that's going to be the key to victory for the Clemson Tigers defense. I think it's going to be a great game, honestly. I think that you're going to see both teams struggle to run the ball. Some really good defenses like we've talked about. But in the end, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide winning 27-13. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that score indicates. I think the Tide might pull off one of their classic fourth quarter drives that take 9 minutes off the clock that end with Derrick Henry getting like 10 rushes, ends up in the end zone on a 2-yard dive by the end of it. Mac, what do you see? What's your prediction?
I think Alabama will win, and they should win. They're the better team, it seems. But I think just because that seems to be how these games go, it's going to be tight. I've got Alabama by 33-30.
Ooh, high scoring affair. Anyways,
it's college ball for you.
College ball, you never know. It's unpredictable. Who knows? Any of the things we just talked about, probably all going to go out the door. Like you said, that's just college football. But anyways, we both got the Tide. Roll Tide. Watch it next Monday. I'm looking forward to it. I am already super pumped. It is going to be a great game. So anyways, let's move on to some college basketball now. This is going to be a bit of a quick segment. We're just going to talk about some top performers, some players who might have exceeded expectations this year, and then we're going to talk about some players who have been frankly disappointing this year. So let's jump right into it. Our top players, we're going to start with the obvious one, Ben Simmons of LSU, the top-ranked prospect coming out of high school last year. Really, everyone saw him as the top player, a clear-cut number one choice, and he has not disappointed, to be completely honest. He has put that LSU Tigers team on his back, led them to an 8-5 record, which does not sound great, but for the supporting cast he has, that is absolutely incredible. I mean, he's averaging 20.5 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists a game. I mean, what more can you ask for from a freshman coming in?
Yeah, no kidding.
I think that this team, and in particular him, could be very scary come March during the final tournament, because who knows? Let's say they get a 5, 6, or even 7 seed. If you're a 2 seed or 3 seed,
it's a matchup nightmare.
Having to play him in the second round, I mean, he's one of those guys that can put the team on his back, like he's shown he has, and just run you over, run you right out of a tournament, run a good team like Duke, like Kansas, like Kentucky, right out of the tournament. So, anyways, he's been really impressive. He came in as the number 1 overall draft pick in the next year's NBA draft, and he's just doing everything he can to solidify it. So, barring a major lottery change, I think we're going to see the Philadelphia 76ers add another giant piece in Ben Simmons. But you know what? I think he definitely has the capabilities of being, as crazy as this sounds, the one who can actually save that franchise.
Might I note, though, that the Phillies got a few wins recently.
That's true. That's true.
But that makes it even more interesting because the next team up, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah. That would be
very interesting.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe one superstar out in Kobe Bryant, and another one comes in.
Yeah.
But anyways, definitely interesting. And then another player who has really kind of taken the NCAA by storm. We get to see him a lot as Canadians. He's followed quite frequently around here. Jamal Murray from Kentucky, who actually was not rated in the top 100 players going into this, top 10 players going into this season, but has definitely played himself into that role.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you look at that Kentucky Wildcats team, they're not a very good team. I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, for a Kentucky team.
For a Kentucky team. I mean, they're still 11-2, but if you take him off that team, I think they've got a record very similar to the LSU Tigers, to be honest. He did not start off the year as kind of that primary player in that offense.
He's played his way into the role.
But he's played his way in. I mean, he's averaging 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists a game, which are pretty spectacular numbers for a freshman who coming in was not expected to be the focal point of the team. And you know what? If you've watched Kentucky Wildcats basketball this year, he's playing with both lines that they throw out there. He's playing near 35 minutes a game. So they'll sub off the guys that normally play Tyler Ulis, Scalabrine, but Jamal kind of always seems to be out there. He's able to play with anyone, able to play both guard positions, really versatile player. And I think if he can improve his defense and kind of make that jumper a little more consistent, then he definitely has the ability and talent to be a top player in the NBA and potentially a top 5 draft pick come NBA draft time. So definitely some things to look out for in terms of the Kentucky Wildcats. Jamal's kind of put the team on his back, and it's been impressive to watch. Great for Canadian basketball. I mean, so many up and comers. I mean, we talked about it on episode 9. But just some great things coming out of Canadian basketball, definitely.
Assuming they can make the Olympics, that'd
True.
That would be quite the showcase for Jamal if he could play there just before coming into the NBA.
Yeah.
Star for Canada.
That would be very impressive. And speaking of the Kentucky Wildcats, that leads us into our first major disappointment. Skal Labissiere, who was the second-ranked player out of the freshman class coming into this season. He had a decent start to the year. He was looked at as the focal point of that Kentucky team. Really a physical specimen. Really wide arm span. Needs to put on a little bit more muscle. Tall, skinny guy from Haiti. But he's kind of declined his play over the past little while. He started the year really well. He's averaging 9.2 points, 3.5 rebounds a game, but over the last 4 games, that's dropped to only 4 points and 3 rebounds. So some disappointing play.
I think players like him, generally, you'll see it'll take longer for them to develop.
Yeah.
Like, high upside, we're talking, and, like, they could reach that, but, like, you see a lot of players like him, like, freakishly athletic and stuff, high upside, growing pains.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think John Calipari has definitely realized that he might not be able to be the star of the team that when he brought him in, he thought he could. I mean, his minutes are declining.
Right.
He's still, like we said, he's still incredibly raw.
Yeah.
But does have some upside.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, for me personally, I would take Jamal Murray over Skal Labissiere right now.
Yeah, if we're talking NBA ready, but that's just the way Jamal Murray's game is compared to Labissiere. It's just, the way they play the game. It's just one style of game takes longer to develop than another.
For sure. Yep. No,
they can both end up being just as successful in the show, but if we're talking a transition from college to the NBA, Jamal Murray, I think he showed he can play against pros, like the Pan Am Games. And
for sure.
His game is probably the most pro-ready behind maybe Ben Simmons.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with that. It's and I think Kentucky's finally figured that out as well. If you look at the kind of the minute separation where the offense is running from field goal attempts per game, they've kind of transitioned that offense away from Labissiere to Murray, right? So I think they've kind of figured it out, but definitely a disappointing start to his probably 1 year collegiate career for Skal Labissiere. Hopefully he can pick it up, lead those Wildcats to where they want to be. Obviously, very high expectations for that team. Just their program history. So our last guy that we're going to talk about, another disappointment, Cheick Diallo of my Kansas Jayhawks. Speaking of that crazy game last night, unbelievable game between the Jayhawks and the Sooners. Game of the year.
Sometimes when the top two teams meet, it can be a bit anticlimactic, but
last night was not anticlimactic.
No.
That was unbelievable, just back and forth. Great games by a lot of players on both teams. To be honest, I don't think anyone would be disappointed if those two teams met each other in the national championship. We do get to see them one more time face off against each other. I think February 13th or 15th. They play in Oklahoma, so I think that'll be an awesome game. So going back to Cheick Diallo, definitely disappointing. Obviously, coming from Mali, he had that whole eligibility issue at the beginning of the year. He wasn't cleared to play until December. People thought he was going to be transitioned in, which he was, very, very slowly. But the problem is that the transition hasn't picked up. It's actually regressed. If you look at the number of minutes he's playing per game, it's declined, and it kind of accumulated yesterday when he only played 5 minutes in a triple overtime game with 0 points and 1 rebound. So I mean, this is for the 7th ranked prospect coming into the season from the freshman class. Really, his only time has come in meaningless games against Loyola, Holy Cross, and Montana. He's averaging 5.4 points and 2.8 rebounds, but nowhere near as good as people thought he would be once he was cleared to play. Luckily, Kansas hasn't really needed him, to be honest. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the nation right now, just knocked off the number 2 team, playing some really, really good ball. The offense is finally clicking. Perry Ellis, Wayne Selden, Frank Mason. I mean, they look really, really good. But if you could find a way to kind of again capture that raw talent that we talked about, like Labissiere with Diallo, I think that team is just going to propel themselves even further up into this NCAA season. So definitely some things to look for would be a big game tonight. Ben Simmons and Skal Labissiere are actually going to face off against each other. Kentucky's playing LSU. So those two players are going to be matched up against each other. Definitely some matchups to look out for. It should be a great game. Other than that, that's it. Any last comments? Thanks for watching episode 11, a college sports fiesta. Mac and I are going to film another one right after this. We're going to talk about a couple more things. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great night.